Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the HR Minister. I'm your host, Dana Lynch, and this podcast is all about people, purpose, and the real conversations happening in today's workplace. And today's episode is one I'm especially excited about. We're talking about something that doesn't always get said out loud. The questions college students are thinking, but may be too afraid to ask. And I'm joined by someone today who has been part of that journey this year. One of my interns, April. April, I'm so glad that you're here.
I'm so glad to be here.
Absolutely. Why don't you share just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I am a graduating senior this year from college. So I go to Nelson University. I've been here the past 2 years. I'm originally from the Houston area where I grew up, but here I've been studying business management. And so now I'm graduating. I'm very excited for my future career. I'm looking just to work somewhere that I'm all about people, purpose-driven brands. So I'm just hoping I can keep branching out and keep expanding that, just that desire that I've been working towards. So I'm really happy to be here. It's just been such an honor being your intern this semester. So yeah.
No, the honor is all mine. And I love that you shared all of that. I love Nelson University. I love Houston. And your future is absolutely so bright, April.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Yes.
And again, it's been such a pleasure having you as part of the team. I would love to know more about your experience throughout this internship. So I took a few notes that I wanted to chat with you about. So really the first one is about the reflection of your internship.
Yes.
So I just want to start off with, how about just start off with telling us what your favorite parts of the experience was?
Yes, there's so many moments that I could talk about. This was a really great experience overall. I'll just start off with the big thing, which was the job fair.
Yeah,
So the third annual Ellis County Community Resource
that's
and
right.
Career Fair.
Yeah.
And so just my favorite part of that really was the day of seeing all the work that we had put in it come to life. All the spreadsheets, all the emails, all the everything, docs, all of it. Come into a real life experience where we're meeting the vendors that we're communicating with, the presenters, seeing it all come to life, the people that were actually impacted through that. Getting to run the event, getting to even the honor of being the spokesperson at the tables.
For sure.
I got to meet everyone who walked in. And so it was really a cool experience seeing how not only how successful it was, but how it actually impacted people, every person that came. So that was definitely my favorite parts. And then I would add to that just something that really grew me was going to the Chamber of Commerce board meetings. Having to stand up and speak in front of everyone was a little uncomfortable, but it ended up being one of my favorite parts of the experience because I don't think I would have ever done that if it wasn't for this internship. So I'm really grateful for that.
Oh, fantastic. That just makes me just beam with pride to hear you say all of these things. Yeah, it's amazing how at an event like that, people do not realize all of the work and the months of work, right, that it takes to go to lead up to one event that's kind of just over in 4 to 5 hours.
Yes.
Just boom, it's over.
Yeah.
And yeah, you did a phenomenal job speaking at the Chamber of Commerce. I
Thank you.
shared with you many times. I got a lot of compliments, and you never once looked like you were nervous. You were just right there, just ready to go. So fantastic. So kind of the converse question. So what were your biggest challenges then with
Absolutely.
the internship?
I would say just stepping into a remote environment was a little difficult for me at first because just being a student, you're used to in person, everything that you do. And so stepping into a remote environment, you just kind of have to figure things out as you go. So I knew that you weren't going to micromanage us. So I just really had to find the balance of picking up work myself, finding what there needs to be done, and just learning how to be proactive even when I don't see you every day. And so that was a learning experience for sure. And then even with board meetings or speaking in front of people, that's something I just get nervous about. And so I was happy to do it, but it definitely was a bit of a challenge, like just building up the confidence, not letting myself get in my head for doing something that maybe I'd never done before. But through that, I learned how to take experience that I did have and kind of translate it into this experience.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it was really great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad that it was then a bit of a stretch assignment for you because
Definitely.
that's how we all learn, right?
Hmm.
I mean, me too. So, and the cool thing about a remote type of internship is, a lot of jobs nowadays are remote,
Right.
right? Or
Hmm.
or maybe your supervisor is remote. You might be in an office, but your supervisor could be somewhere else. So,
Definitely.
it's just a cool experience to have because a lot of it is just really kind of figuring out, your way forward and using your resources, which you really did so
Yes.
well. So,
Thank you.
absolutely. And then what is one skill that you learned here that college does not teach?
That's a great question. Um, so this internship, or really any internship, it's going to be a lot different from just your classes that you're going to. So one skill that I really learned through this internship was that how to communicate professionally in a real workplace environment. In class, you learn how to communicate, like you learn how to complete assignments, you work on group projects. For example, in this internship, I learned how to communicate with different personalities, people who I knew were much more above me. And so, much more experienced, much more wise, much more professional than I was. So, just learning how to communicate with them, how to be confident in that environment. I learned that strong communication is just as important as technical skills or be able to complete an assignment. Being able to build a name for yourself, in even in a small setting, is really what I learned.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you created a really great brand, I think, for yourself during this internship because a lot of people, like I said, they came up to me, right? There was one person that even was like, "Hey, would she be interested in a job?" She
Yes.
was pretty
Hmm.
amazing. So
Yes.
I thought that was really nice. So what advice would you give to other students that are looking for an internship or about to start one?
Yes, definitely. So, one advice I would give to any students about to start internship this summer or in the fall or any point, would just to be not to doubt yourself, because it can feel like maybe if you're stepping into the workforce, it can feel like such a gap between your what you know from school and what you need to know in the workforce. But really, I think that if you're hired for an internship, they know you're an intern, and so it really is a place to grow. So to not be worried that you don't have the skills or that you don't know the workforce lingo or whatever it is, like just be ready to learn, be open to learn, and be confident that the skills that you have learned in school are enough. And then for anyone looking for an internship, this might not apply to everybody, but I would say that the best piece of advice that I have from my personal experience is just having good relationships with your professors. If you can build strong relationships with your professors in your first 2, 3 years of school, then when you're in that last year and you're looking for an internship, you're gonna have connections. They're gonna be able to connect you. I had two professors recommend that I connect with you. And I do believe that helped me get this internship. And so it really comes from having those good connections. And it starts from the first year or two of school.
That is so cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, April. Those are such real and valuable insights, and I think you really hit it on the head. It really is all about relationships
Hmm.
wherever you go.
Yes.
Because applications can just kind of get lost in the process. But if you kind of, if someone's recommended you, whatever, it definitely goes a really, really long way.
Yes.
And I just wanted to add one piece too, just kind of like from the employer side. Um, I want all the interns out there to know, like, we love interns. We're
Mm.
excited to meet you. We cannot wait for you to come into the workforce and bring us like all of this, cool, up to date knowledge that, we just don't have because we haven't
Yes.
been in school for a while.
Hmm.
So we're excited to hear about, what y'all are doing. You were teaching me Google Docs and stuff. So
Yeah, and that's so
I
encouraging to
totally
hear.
dig that.
Yeah.
I love that. So, are you good with transitioning then over to our next
Absolutely.
section?
I'm
Yeah,
excited.
I like this one too. So, we came up with another list of questions. So, this is going to be questions college students are too afraid to ask. So, this one's going to be really cool. So, this one's about remote work. So,
Yes.
yeah, go
All right.
ahead.
So, given that I did a lot of remote work in this internship, I really wanted to cover kind of what questions students might have about this. So, my first question is just how do I stand out if I'm working remotely? What advice would you give to a young professional entering the remote workplace?
Yeah, that is such a great, great question and one that applies to so many workplaces today, right? Because a lot of folks are working remotely or Or like I mentioned a second ago, sometimes maybe you're in the workplace, but your supervisor could be somewhere else. So standing out remotely really comes down to three things, in my opinion. It's visibility, communication, and consistency.
Mm,
So you want to make sure that people see you. So you're not in the office every day. So
right.
you need to find another way for people to be able to see you. So turn on your camera,
Mm,
whenever you're
mm-hmm.
having those Zoom meetings, etc. When it's appropriate, and then speak up in meetings, even if it's just a comment or a supportive type of thing that you might say for someone else that might have been saying, talking, or presenting. And then don't be afraid to contribute as well. And that includes also sometimes, we'll have like the chat feature on. So sometimes you can also participate that way and just be supportive
Yeah.
with your leaders or with your coworkers. And then communicate clearly, share updates, ask questions, and just don't go silent because
Yes.
that's when, the imagination starts flowing on both sides, right? And that's never too good. And then most importantly, be consistent, meet those deadlines, follow through, and be someone that your team can really rely on,
Definitely.
right? And then in a remote environment, your reputation is built on what you deliver and how dependable you are. So just even though you're remote, still bring that really good energy.
Definitely. That is great advice. Thank you so much for
For
sharing.
sure. Thank you.
My next question has to do with looking for a job once you've already graduated college. So
Yeah.
it's the feat that many of us students fear before we actually get there. I'm in that season right now. So my first question is just what makes a resume immediately go in the no pile?
That's really good. So as an HR professional, having worked in the workforce for many years in that role, I'm going to be very honest here, because this is where
Please,
small
yes.
things, this is really where those small details can make a huge difference. And of course, nowadays we get resumes in all sorts of different forms, right? So it
Right.
could be still paper, it could be, in the mail for some places. Maybe some larger organizations or one that are more electronic, they'll have ATS systems, which brings a whole other layer because then AI has entered the picture and they're
Mm,
the ones that are doing the screening. So you really have to think about, where are you applying? How are you applying? What systems are they using to be able to screen candidates? You got to kind of think through that, and it could be different to different places that you apply. But specifically to answer your question, resumes go in the no pile when there are spelling or grammar
mm,
errors. That's just a huge no-no. So definitely review your information before you submit it. Anything that's too long or too hard to read, if there's no clear direction, in other words, like instead of chronological order, it's kind of like jumping all over the place, that can
right.
be a little difficult to focus on. Or if it looks generic, like it was sent to 100 employers without customization,
Mm,
as an employer, I have to say you want to feel special. You want to be like, oh my gosh, they just applied to us.
mm-hmm.
Even though, yeah, maybe you applied to other places, but customize it for who you're applying for. And then I usually try to give this tip as well that for a resume, you want to make sure that the top third of your resume stands out.
Mm,
So in my pile of 50 resumes, and all I see is the name, the phone number, and the top
right.
part, how are you going to stand out to me so that I go, whoa, I need to look at this one?
Wow.
So keep that in mind. It's not like the pages and pages of information. The top third is the first part that's going to catch someone's eye and is going to make me want to go, okay, let me just keep reading.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. And then the biggest reason that someone would go into the no pile is that through all of those things, I just can't see the value,
Mm,
and then it's like, and usually we spend just like seconds whenever we're first perusing a resume. So the resume should definitely clearly answer why should I bring you in for an interview. And if that's not clear in the first few seconds, it can be a pass. I hate to say that.
got it.
Yeah.
So, going back to the top third of that resume, are there
hmm
any specific things that you notice that really stand out from others?
Great question. So, typically after the name, the phone number, the email address, there'll be a section that's either objective or something that states this is what I'm
Yes.
looking for and this is my little summary about me. Um, that should be very clear to me. So, in other words, if someone is applying for, I'll just use HR as a specific, but if someone's looking for an HR generalist position, then everything in that summary, that professional summary, should speak to that position. If it tells me that they're also looking for a social media
Mm.
specialist
Mm-hmm.
role, then I'm going to be confused. And I'm like, which one are you really looking for?
Right.
So that's where I mean customize it. And if it's like, wow, it has the job I'm hiring for, and you're giving me all of your qualifications right out the gate,
Mm-hmm.
I want to know more.
Awesome. That's really good advice. So this leads me to my next question because I know many students like me are kind of wondering, like we feel like our resumes are really good. And so then we start to wonder, like, is a good resume really enough? So my next question is, what actually matters more, experience or networking?
Mm, that is a question that a lot of people definitely wrestle with. And I would say the truth is you do need both.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to simplify it, I would say networking really does get you the opportunity. It
Mm-hmm.
could be the door opener, and then the experience could help you keep it. So you can be incredibly qualified, but if no one knows who you are, it really could be harder to get in the door.
Absolutely.
And then networking is all about building relationships, checking in, being curious, staying connected. And then, people typically will hire people that they trust, and trust could be, is built through connection. So if someone, recommends so and so and they
Mm-hmm.
really value that person's opinion, that could definitely, get the person, in
Yes,
the door quicker. So yeah, I think I love networking. So I would say just, anything you can do with networking,
definitely.
even if it's like, hi, how are you? And they just keep saying that for 3 weeks and then you have a good conversation.
Mm.
That helps.
Yes, definitely. That's good to know. Um, so when it comes to interviews, say we've done the resume, we've done the networking, we finally got an interview.
Yes.
Um, we've never really had a serious job before. So how honest should I be if I don't know the answer to a question they ask me in an interview?
Sure. Definitely, be honest, but don't stop at, I don't know,
Mm.
or I've never had that experience
Mm-hmm.
before, because there is going to be something in your background that will help you connect to that question in some way. So instead, say something like, I don't have experience with that yet, but here's how I would approach learning it.
Mm.
That would show like initiative, problem solving, and confidence. And then, whenever you're a young professional going into the workforce, no one expects you to know everything. So there's a lot of grace,
Mm-hmm.
that people that are interviewing are going to give you. Again, especially earlier in your career. But they do expect that you show that you know how to think and that you're quick on your feet.
Mm.
So never just go, no, I've never had that, and then just leave, just drop it
Right.
into silence. Have a little conversation about that. Does
Absolutely.
that help?
Yes. And would you say that most interviewers they appreciate honesty in the interview?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. You definitely want to be yourself, because if you can't be yourself during the interview, then how's it going to
Right.
be when you're working there,
Yeah,
So just be yourself.
definitely.
And if you're supposed to be there, you'll be there.
That's good. That's really good. Really, really encouraging for me as well.
Of course.
So going back to before we land the interview, just from personal experience, I know that it can take a lot to even get to the interview process. So when it comes to networking, as a student, we're not really in a workforce environment. We don't know a lot of professionals. So actually, as a student, how can we start networking while still in college?
Yeah, well, you're already a step ahead just by asking that question. So yeah, awesome. So I would say start now. Attend career fairs and events.
Mm.
Um, Even if maybe you're not looking for a job or you already have a job, still go to all of these events, because you never know who you're going to meet.
Mm.
You truly don't. And that person can possibly recommend you, or they can be like, oh my gosh, I know so and so at that company that you're trying to get into. Let me call them right now. So
Yes.
definitely get out there and just start talking to people. Connect on LinkedIn and actually engage, not just connect. On LinkedIn, you definitely want to do a lot of likes or comment. And that, of course, as many people know, gets that algorithm up, gets you starting, to be seen,
Yes.
and people might be connecting with you. You already talked about this one, talking to your professors, right? Having
Definitely.
good
Yes.
relationships with them. If you ever have an opportunity to visit, like with guest speakers, don't just attend what their presentation is. Go up to them afterwards, before or after, and go, hey, here's what I'm interested in. What advice do you have for me? And just don't be afraid to talk to people. That's really what, a lot of the magic is in. And then, of course, volunteering, join organizations.
Yes.
And, you said you had a great experience with the Chamber of Commerce. So if there's a
Yes.
way for you to like be able to connect any of those social meetings, I think that would be a really, really good one too, because you get in front of a lot of business folks.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's all really good advice.
yeah, absolutely. And then I'm trying to think what else. Maybe the other part too that some people might miss is actually following up.
Mm.
So, there could be a networking event where, someone's like, here's my card, call me. But
Right.
then no one calls,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or
Yes.
it'll be 3 months later and it's like, I met you at that thing. And then by then,
Yeah.
the moment is over. So I would say if someone gives you the card or you connect with someone in some way, connect with them pretty quickly and then just stay in touch with them and just go, hi, I really enjoyed our meeting. I just wanted to say hello. Hope you're doing well. And just love to just stay in connection with you.
Yes.
Takes 2 seconds. And then they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, yeah, April from that place.
Yes.
She's still connecting. And again, like I said, send a message, stay in touch, build that relationship, and then also practice introducing yourself, building your confidence, speaking with professionals, stay curious, asking questions, um, and just definitely practicing introducing yourself. I will teach some of my students to like, it sounds weird, but if you practice your introduction in the mirror, then you can see your facial expressions and your
Wow.
mannerisms.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see the energy that you have going out. You always want to have good energy. You want to be interesting
Mm-hmm.
to someone when they meet you. Because then it's
Definitely.
like, ooh, okay, yeah, I want to talk to that person more. So anyhow, I think
Huh.
those small connections could help build those opportunities.
Yes, definitely. And I do appreciate how practical that advice was. Like I can go and apply that. So that's really great.
Thank you.
Aside from the networking aspect, are there any other things I could do as a student to set me up for success once I graduate?
Um, that's a great question. I would say also just stay connected with your fellow students. You know,
Absolutely.
sometimes folks you'll just have your core group of friends,
Mm-hmm.
but then the rest of the folks that you're in class with, you may or may not talk to each other ever
Yes.
again.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say stay connected with your professors, stay connected with other students in the class, or maybe if you were part of like experiences or different meetings or groups,
Mm-hmm.
because you never know. Maybe one of them is going to start a business and they're like, hey, I need a person. Do
Yeah.
you know of anyone?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, me.
Mm-hmm.
There's been so many businesses that have started out of college, just people that happen to be together and they had a similar idea and they're like, let's do it.
Yes.
So I think that is an important one as well.
Absolutely. And just to add on to this conversation a
Yeah.
little bit, not to go off script or anything,
Yeah.
but would you say that when a company's looking at a resume and they see unpaid work, for example,
Mm-hmm.
like a campus organization leader or a volunteer opportunity, does that look better, worse, the same?
It's fabulous.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. List
Mhm.
that on there. Employers love to see that students have volunteer experience, and especially if you have a leadership role, put that on there because again, it
Awesome.
shows you made decisions, you organized information, or you
Mhm.
organized a group of people, and that is all really, really that's gold.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's really good. All right. So, my last question that I have for you is just what advice do you wish someone had given you as a college student about to enter the workforce? Is there anything you wish you had done differently?
Yeah, I love this question. Of course, the times when I entered college were a while ago, and times were quite different. But I wish someone would have told me that you don't have to have everything figured out.
Mm.
You just need to take the next step. So just one step in front of the other. Probably I would have maybe taken more chances, networked earlier, trusted myself sooner. And I love being an entrepreneur, and I can't recommend that enough to people.
Wow.
That if you have an idea, just try it. It doesn't mean you have to be the next mega corporation, but if you're
Right.
helping a few people through an idea you had through a business that you started, I think that's fabulous. So I always recommend, entrepreneurship if that's something that's in you. And then also just remember too that, your first job is not your forever job.
Mm.
It's your starting point, and just be proud of it. It's your launching pad. And then of course just focus on learning, growing, again, building those relationships, and then your career will evolve, and that's exactly how it's supposed to be.
Awesome. That's really good. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, great questions. Love that. Love
Thank
that. I love our
you.
conversation. So we'll go ahead and start wrapping this up then. So, April, thank you so very,
Of
very much
course.
for being here today, for
Thank
being
you.
my intern.
Yes.
That was an amazing experience. And thank you for asking such thoughtful and honest questions. And to everyone listening, these are the conversations that help bridge the gap between education and the real world of work. If you enjoy our show, please subscribe, like, and share. It really does help our channel. As well, you can find us on YouTube under Career Frontier. If you're a business owner or leader and need HR support, visit Human Resources 911 at hr911.org. We're here to support you. And if you're passionate about helping students succeed, I invite you to learn more about Moonstone Pathways Foundation, our 501c3 nonprofit that's dedicated to scholarships and workforce development. And of course, as I always say, until next time, please take really good care of yourself. And my usual slogan, one life, your life. Take care, everyone.